I wish you could see what I see. I wish you could stand up here and look out and just see what I see. I have a confession to make. After almost 39 years of marriage, I can honestly say to you that I don't understand women. Yeah. I came home the other night and walked in the door, and Alita met me at the door, and she said, "There's something wrong with the foundation." I said, "Well, what's wrong with the foundation?" And I started going down in the basement. You see, ladies, when guys think about foundation, we think about rebar and concrete. And she said, "No, not down in the basement. There's something wrong with the foundation." I said, "Well, what's wrong with the foundation?" She said, "It's caking." I said, "It cakes?" And she said, "Yeah, look, it's just caking all over my face." And I said, "Well, what can we do about that?" And she said, "Well, you're supposed to use a foundation brush." And I said, "Do you have a foundation brush?" And she said, "No." "Well, what can we do about that?" She said, "Well, I don't need a foundation brush." I said, "Okay, yeah." She says, "I learned you're not supposed to ever use a sponge when you're using foundation." I said, "Okay, so what do you use?" And she says, "I use a beauty blender." And I said, "Well, what's a beauty blender?" She said, "Well, it's a sponge shaped like an egg." Take the foundation back, which she did, and said the beauty cream works just as well. And I said, "Well, that's just wonderful." I have learned the hair thing. I did learn that about 10 years into the marriage. I learned the hair thing, where my daughter or my wife would come in and they just had their hair redone. They had a whole new do, and I would say, "Oh, that looks awesome." And they go, "No, it doesn't. It's the worst hair." Or I walk in and say, "Well, I really don't like that." And say, "What do you mean?" So now when they come in, when I see my wife and she says, "What do you think of my hair?" I'll say, "I don't know. Do I like it?" But I've got to be honest with you, I'm still working on the eyebrow thing, you know. Yeah, my daughter had her eyebrows waxed, and I'm sure that's so the rain will beat up on them and they won't. Or the plucking, you know, the plucking of the eyebrows where they pluck them out and then they paint them back on. Yeah, I don't know if you've been to the mall recently, at least this mall up near here. You go in and there's a kiosk right in the middle of the mall, and people pay money. And they'll sit there in the middle of the kiosk, and somebody will have, it looks like dental floss. And they take it and they put it on the eyebrows and they start flinging this thing, and people are in pain and they're screaming. All I know is that I do not want to walk by that kiosk as eyebrow hair is flying out. So I don't understand women. I wish you could see what I see from here on the stage. You know, I can't see a single plucked eyebrow, and it's probably just as well. You're so much more than that. We're so obsessed with our appearance, and don't take me wrong, I am so glad that you dressed up for today. You're probably glad that I dressed up for today, that I took my shower and put deodorant on. If you're not glad now, you will be when you hug me. But, you know, we're obsessed with our appearance. But if you could just see what I see. It has very little to do with foundation or beauty cream or eyebrows. It has nothing to do with you guys, whether we have 6-packs or 12-packs or whatever it is we have. You know, when I married my wife, when I married Alita, it had nothing to do with her eyebrows. And my wife is beautiful. She's very, very beautiful, and I appreciate that about her. But she's more than that. I married her because of the love that she expressed to me that just opened my soul like my soul had never been opened before. So when I see her, I see this love. And so she'll ask me, she'll say, did you notice my new eyeshadow? And I'll say no, because I haven't. But I see something else in her. After she hits me in the arm, I'll tell her about the love that I see shining through her. So I've been thinking about this thing. Thinking about this love. I'm thinking about wholeness. Thinking a lot about wholeness lately. You know, a few weeks ago, well, actually last week, we showed you a video. And the video was sort of about wholeness. And as I think about that video, I'll share with you what was on the video in a minute, but as I think about that video, I'm reminded what Jesus said. I'm reminded what Scripture says. I'm reminded what the Old Testament says, the Hebrew Testament. I'm reminded that it says, you are created in the image and after the likeness of God. Now think about that for a moment. You are created in the image and after the likeness of God. Nowhere does it say that God is created in the image and after the likeness of us. And yet we've taken a God and we've put a God in heaven, someplace up there, and put a beard on him, this friendly old man, and sometimes not so friendly. And that's not God. That's not God at all. You know, Jesus said, God is love. He didn't say God has love. He said God is love. God is this love that comes from the very depths of our being. Unconditional love. There's no qualifiers to that. God is this unconditional love that's within us. We are created in the image and after the likeness of love. Unconditional love. That's our nature. Jesus said God is spirit. God is spirit. And then he went on and talked about how God is in him and he is in us. Not Jesus as such, but the Christ, the essence of God. We have the very essence of God within us. And he said we're to abide in God's presence. We're supposed to be at one with God and with all God's creation. So I've been thinking about that. So often we equate wholeness with healing. People pray for wholeness and they think it has to do with healing, with mental, physical, and emotional healing. So I was reminded of the video we showed last week after the service. You remember? It was the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. And we had the ministers going through the challenge, and we had Reverend Eileen going through the challenge, and Reverend Patricia and Brian and Alan Carl going through the challenge. And I was thinking about wholeness, and I thought to myself as I was thinking about ALS, does someone who have ALS, are they not whole? Do they not experience wholeness? I was thinking about a ministerial student that I knew when I was back at the village who had MS. And I was thinking, was he not whole because he had MS? I was thinking about the challenges that we go through in our lives. I was thinking about the hurts that we have, and I was thinking about relationship challenges and job challenges and all of this, and I thought to myself, so are we not whole when we're going through these challenges? And wholeness has a whole different meaning for me now. It does. Wholeness is being one with God. Whole is being true to that which we truly are. Wholeness is being love, unconditional love. You know, how can you have wholeness and have conditional love? You know, last week, I think it was at the 9 o'clock service, Mary Almwake said from Scripture that you will have trials and tribulations. I wish she would have done the second part of that Scripture. She said, you know, in this world you have trials and tribulations. We do. We have trial and tribulation. And then the Christ said, and I have overcome the world. And we have that Christ essence in us, that we truly can overcome the world. We have trial and tribulation. Anybody here never go through a trial or tribulation in your life? Just raise your hand, because you may be excused. We go through healing challenges. We go through divorce. We go through finding a new job. Right in the midst of that circumstance, we can be whole. Do you know your wholeness exists right now, right where you are, whatever you're doing in your life, you are now whole. Even when things are going great, you are whole. I wish that you could see what I see. On September 11th, we had the World Day of Prayer out at Unity Village. Mark Nepo was one of the speakers out there. And Mark wrote these words. He said, "I believe we are all connected at the deepest and most elemental level, and that experience and circumstance manipulate us away from our better selves." And then he talks about this poem that he wrote. "My soul tells me we were all broken from the same nameless heart, and every living thing wakes with a piece of that original heart, aching its way into blossom. This is why we know each other below our strangeness, why when we fall, we lift each other, or when in pain, we hold each other, why when sudden with joy, we dance together. Life is the many pieces of the great heart loving itself back together." I wish you could see what I see. You know, if we truly look beyond appearances, when we looked at people, we wouldn't see the ALS, we wouldn't see the eyebrows, we wouldn't see the foundation problem. We would see wholeness. We would see the qualities of God. And this is sort of a prelude of what we're going to be talking about in Fall Faith. We're setting the tone for Fall Faith by talking about looking at other people and seeing the love that exists within them, the forgiveness, the healing, the abundance. When you look into the very mirror of your soul, what do you see? Do you see the image and likeness of God? Do you see the image and likeness of love? Or do you see a challenge and tribulation? You know, we have the power to change our lives. Fall Faith is going to be all about this, and if you haven't signed up for Fall Faith, I encourage you to do so. Fall Faith is going to be about making a commitment to your spiritual well-being. Now, I don't want to go all Pollyanna on you. You know, in Unity, they say we're way too Pollyanna, that all we talk about is that everything is wonderful and everything is good and everything is great. Well, folks, sometimes we hurt. And it's okay. Sometimes we go through crap. My mother-in-law, Alita's mother, was taken to the emergency room this weekend, and she's now in the hospital. And, you know, the whole family is looking at it. Is she there with something life-threatening? We don't know. She's 91. She'll be 91 next month. Is it serious? If you're 91 and you're in the hospital, everything is serious. And it'd be silly for us to sit here and say, everything is wonderful, everything is good, it's so great. But it's easy for me to stand here and say, I see wholeness. I see wholeness. I see the wholeness of God in you. Everything may be wonderful in your world right now. I had the most wonderful experience this past week. I'm sure it's going to live with me forever. People have commented on my talks and said, you know, Bob, you talk about your grandson Dorian every talk you give. So I'm not going to mention Dorian's name once during this talk today. But I went over to the kid's house and I opened the door. I had some stuff I had to do for them. And here comes this 7-year-old with the arms extended. And he goes, Grandpa, and just gave me the biggest hug. And there is joy. You know, and it's so easy to see the wholeness of God when you're looking at the joy. And I saw the wholeness of God in him. But we've got to look and see the wholeness of God when we're hurting. You know, it's okay for us to be in the darkness. I really wish that you could see what I see standing up here. So why don't you do this? Why don't you all just stand up? Why don't you look around? And if you want to do something really brave, those of you down here, look up to the balcony. And the balcony, look down here. And do you see what I see? Do you see the radiant lights of God that are just existing all around you, that are coming through you? Okay, and be seated. The radiant light of God. When you came in today, in your bulletin, there are 2 cards. And they both say the same thing. They say, when I see you, I see. Would you pull those 2 cards out? And if you don't have them, would you just raise your hand, and our prayer chaplains will bring you some of the cards? I want everybody to have 2 cards. We've got some back here. And Sandy, there's one back there. And Sandy, all the way back on the right. In a moment, we're going to go into a time of meditation. And I was thinking about World Day of Prayer. And I don't know what you did for World Day of Prayer. You know, we had those prayer slips that we filled out. In those prayer slips, I wrote everybody's name I could possibly think of. And then I turned the prayer slip in saying, well, Silent Unity can take care of all the prayer work. So I didn't hold them in prayer. Even when I wrote the name down, I didn't see the wholeness in each one. And it reminded me, Bob, you've got to do your part. It's not up to just Silent Unity. We have to do our part. So in a moment, we're going to go into time meditation. And I'm going to ask, did you just become aware of someone that's on your personal prayer list? Don't have to do that yet. We'll let the meditation speak to you about that. And then when you do so, I want you to write the name of that person down. And if they're going through a time of tribulation, to write down the truth about them so that you can say, when I see you, I see. So like my mother-in-law, I can honestly say to her, Irmgard, when I see you, I see wholeness. Somebody's looking for financial assistance. When I see you, I see abundance. When I see you, I see healing. When I see you, I see joy. When I see you, I see love. When I see you, I see peace. And then what we're going to do is we'll have a little time in the silence. Then we're going to have you just pass those cards, I'll tell you when, to the center aisles. And our prayer chaplains are going to pick them up, and they're going to bring them up to Reverend Jan, who's in charge of our prayer ministry. So they're going to come from you to our prayer chaplains to Reverend Jan, and then they're going back into our prayer ministry. So if you want to keep the name confidential, you might just write the first name down. And if it's okay, they'll write the full name down. But I want you to hold the truth about these people, and then hold on to that second card, because we'll talk about it during the meditation. So let's just close our eyes now for a moment. And take a breath. Just take a deep, deep cleansing breath. You know, Sunday service is about more than just being in here and listening to the music and listening to a message. It's about wholeness. It's about being whole, about being healed. And so there's someone in your life right now that is really asking for prayer support. I invite you just to let that name come to you. Maybe somebody you know real well, maybe a friend or a family member, maybe an acquaintance. It may be a name you've never heard before, because that prayer request is out in the living ethers. And take a moment and just to see the truth about this person. As you imagine them in your mind's eye, you can say to them, just silently say to them, when I see you, I see wholeness, or I see peace, I see love, I see joy, I see abundance, whatever quality of spiritual well-being is appropriate. And just hold to that thought. And then as you're guided, just put that person's name and put that quality of spiritual well-being down on the card. when I see you. And just take a breath and make a commitment to hold to the truth for this person. So whether you see this person one-on-one or just see them in your imagination, that you will affirm for them, when I see you, I see this truth of God. When I see you. And then as you're ready, just pass those cards to the center aisle so our prayer chaplains can collect them. And these come from a sacred space. They come from your heart. And they're going to a sacred space, into this prayer ministry, which will hold them in prayer. And I invite you just to be in a time of quiet reflection and a time of meditation as these cards are selected and placed into our prayer box. And maybe other names and other images come to you. And as they do, just hold them in your prayer. When I see you, I see wholeness. I see love. I see peace. I see abundance. Each prayer request going into this box, something amazing is happening in that person's life. There's no time or space in prayer. Khalil Gibran said that prayer is the expansion of oneself into the living ether. Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, said that prayer is the highest form of human thought. This is a prayer-based ministry. And we have faith in God. When I see you, and while these prayer cards are being placed into the box, I invite you just to take another deep breath. And it's just to move along with me. Just imagine yourself. To take this other card and just imagine yourself looking in a mirror. What do you see when you look into that mirror? I invite you just to silently say to that image you're seeing in the mirror, when I see you, I see. When I see you, I see abundance. When I see you, I see love. When I see you, I see wholeness. And And just take another deep breath and move deeper, deeper within yourself. And maybe there's a hurt that's been there for a long time, or an anger or a resentment. And now's the time to release that. And as you image yourself in that mirror, just see that being released. See this radiant child of God in the mirror. This person is created in the image and after the likeness of love. And as you become aware of the word, this quality of being, I invite you, and you're not going to turn this one in, but I invite you to take the card, put your name on the card, and write this quality down. When I see you, I see. And then just hold this in your hands. When I see you, I see wholeness. When I see you. And we're going to stay in this consciousness of prayer. But I'm going to invite you just to open your eyes. And we as the ministers want the opportunity to reinforce what you're seeing in yourself. And if you're comfortable doing so, then I'm going to invite you to stand in a moment. And we'll come around to you. And we will just take your card, we'll hold the card, and we will affirm, when I see you, I see that quality of being. And so if you're comfortable, I invite you just to stand right now. We'll give you your card back, but hand us the card. Kathy, when I see you, I see grace.
Put some of those prayers into song. Sing with us. The words are up on the screen. I see the beauty in you. I see the power in you. I see the greatness in you. And so it is. I see the child in you. I see the sweetness in you. I see the softness in you. And so it is. I can see it. It's right there before me. I can feel it deep in my soul. I just know it, that you are an angel full of magic and power and pure sweet love. I see the goodness in you. I see the wisdom in you. I see the strength that's in you. And so it is. I see the joy that's in you. I see your light shining through. I see the love that's in you. And so it is. I see the grace that's in you. I see the courage in you. I see the heart that's in you. And so it is. I see the beauty in you. I see the power in you. I see the greatness in you. And so it is.
I truly wish that you could see what we see. Because when we look out, when we see you, we see the heart of God. And so it is.